So namaste, welcome to Linda Graham and Awaken with Linda Graham. This series that we have here for you is to help you on your awakening journey. Now this is an account of my personal journey. Your journey may take a different route altogether. However, my whole reason for doing this is to help you have reassurance that you're not losing the plot. I so wish somebody had been there to tell me about that at the time, so I hope this really helped you. This first experience is to help you see the leading path that leads you to awakening. Yeah, and when we look back in hindsight, we see we were already waking up. It's fascinating, really, really fascinating, and I hope you really enjoy it. And thank you so much for being here. If you like what you see, do hit the subscribe button and the bell will let you know when the next one comes up, and you won't want to miss that one, I tell you. Namaste. My mother always said that I was going to do something different with my life. When I was younger, quite small, she used to tell me all sorts of stories. And the one story that sticks in my mind, which is quite bewildering really, she told me one day when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and we lived in the country. She said I came running in, calling to her and said, "You must come, you must come. You must see, what is this, what is this?" And she ran out into the yard and followed me out, and I climbed over the first fence to the first lush green field. Without any deviation, I rushed across that field. She said then I climbed over the next fence. I rushed straight across another lush green field with really, high growing plants. And then I got to the third field, climbed over the fence, and still without deviation, rushed through this lush green foliage and stopped and pointed down and said, "What is that?" And she said she looked down and saw a green marble. Now that's not really that fantastic, but it is quite amazing when I hadn't any pathway or signpost that led me back to that marble. So that sort of stuck in my mind, that story, and made me wonder. And when we wonder and we ask why and how, we open up a different part of our mind and it allows new things to come in. So there were quite a few things, excuse me. So like if anything went missing in the house, my mum would just ask me where it was. It's like I was hiding everything because I knew where it was. And anyway, let's fast forward to the age of 29. So here I am, a mother of 4 sons. That was a very busy time. Constantly cooking. They were like appetites with a bit of skin stretched over them. They ate and ate, and I had their cousins and their friends come round. It was like I had a football team around my house every day. Very, very busy. Summer holidays, the mothers around must have just loved me. Anyway, on top of the boys being in there and the constant cleaning, washing, ironing and all of those things, I had so many visitors would come and see me each day. They'd start so early in the day, sometimes I didn't even have time to get dressed. In those days, I used to wear this long flowing caftan, which was dead comfortable. Miles too big for me, but I just loved it. And sometimes I'd have 14 people have arrived at my house, all to tell me about their problems, and I still haven't got dressed, and it's 3:30 in the afternoon. It was ridiculous. I had to sort it out. So I learned to get up early and spend a bit of time with myself and get myself prepared for whatever the day would bring. And that was always quite surprising. Loads of people would come, and they'd come and they'd sit around my dining room table. I'd make endless tea. I had tea coming out of my ears by the end of the day. And also at the same time, I was a men's hairstylist and I worked from home. So it was quite busy, as you can imagine. And I also didn't sleep very much. And my husband, at the time, he was definitely early to bed, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, he was in bed. 2 o'clock in the morning, I might get there. And then I'd be up really early in the morning again. Not much time for sleeping, but it didn't seem to be a problem. It's very interesting. My mind was constantly asking questions and trying to understand why about things. And if I look back now with hindsight, all the signs were there. All the signs of this different journey I was going to take. So let's start with when I was 2 years old. Right, we will come back forward to age 29 again very quickly. But I'm going to tell you, I started to have a dream. I had the same dream every single night till the age of 8. And then I had it once a week. And it continued to the age of 33. So really is a quite prominent experience in my life. And in the dream, I would see a brilliant white square, and in the corner would be a little dot, and that would bounce with little dotted lines to the middle of the top of the screen. And then that dotted ball would come through and get a little bit bigger, and it would start to come into the screen. And then it would turn into a cartoon of a man. And then it would come closer and closer and closer until it became a real man. And then the face filled the screen, and then I would wake up terrified. Well, it's not pleasant to know you're going to go to sleep and then you're going to have a terrifying dream. Doesn't sound that terrifying, but it certainly was. That face was right in my face. So that dream, you know, when you keep having the same dream every week, you wonder what on earth that means. And it made me start to study dreams. Now at the same time, my mother, we'll go back to age of 29. My mother, she was quite eccentric. Maybe that's where I get it from. But she constantly kind of talked about spirits and, you know, ghosts and all this sort of thing. And I was just like not buying it. No proof. I was a skeptic. If somebody had told me then I would be doing what I'm doing now, I would never believe them, I can tell you. I was curious at the same time. How can you be a skeptic and curious? I wanted proof, I guess. And a friend of mine was doing tarot, would come round with the tarot cards amongst all these guests and do readings. And I had a little go. And it wasn't too bad, but I just thought it was chance, coincidence, because there I was with this skeptic head. Anyway, there were things that started to happen. Like, I remember one day I started to go upstairs, and I guess it wasn't long after I'd lived in this house at the age of 29. It was quite a modern house. And one day I started to go upstairs and I started getting really scared. I'm quite a tough cookie, mother of 4 boys, you know, and then suddenly I'm really scared. I just don't want to go up the stairs. But one of my sons was up there and I thought, well, whatever is scaring me, I've got to get my son. So I braved it out and went up. But it became a huge thing for me, really huge, and it didn't seem to affect anybody else in the house. And then at some point, somewhere along the line, this knowing came into my mind. I never questioned where that knowing came from. And it was taken back into a memory. Now, on this 3rd or 4th step up the stairs, there was this mirror hanging on the wall. And I was made aware of the thought I had when I first moved into that house a few days after I'd hung the mirror. I'd started to go up the stairs, and at this 4th step, I'd had this anxiety that one of my sons might fall and slide out of the open banisters. Now that fear and anxiety had stuck in the mirror. And I must have subconsciously still had that kind of thought as I was up and down these stairs. And it just grew in the mirror. Every time you have a thought and there's a shiny surface like a mirror, it sticks in there. So it was stuck in this mirror. And I just knew I had to get rid of this mirror. And a friend came around, I said, you have to take this mirror out of my house. You know, just don't put it in a second-hand shop, or I don't know, don't break it. I just know it has to go. And the mirror went and everything was better. And that was, wow, what's all that about? That's really interesting. But it opened up another receptor in my mind. Now, let me see. There were times when I would have conversations with people, but this actually started when I was about 17, saying this type of thing and realising that I probably said the wrong thing. You're going back all that time ago, you know, I'm about 107 now, but going back all that time ago, you had to be really careful what you said and who, because they might come at you with this straitjacket, you know, with the long white sleeves and take you away in a little van. So anyway, one day, just innocently, I said to a friend, oh, you know when you close your eyes and you see those films going on? And they went, no. I said, well, you know, you close your eyes and you see pictures, and they say, no, when I close my eyes, it's black. And they start backing away from me. And I sort of realised I'd said the wrong thing. However, I secretly did have this experience going on. I would close my eyes and a film would be going on. I don't know what the film would be about. It'd be different every day. I'd see different stills. I never saw dark, ever. So going to sleep, trying to go to sleep at night, you'd lay down, close your eyes, and it was like somebody put the light on. It's very, very confusing. You didn't know which world you were in. That's kind of how it felt. Really interesting. And I think nowadays, more people have that experience. I don't know, I haven't actually asked. That's a long time ago that started to be recognised that it was different to other people's experiences. Now here we are at the age of 29. Yes, constantly busy. And I also was helping people to, helping women who are battered. And I was helping getting them to a safe house. And I'd take these women with a few belongings and the children, and we'd escape. We'd take them to a safe house. Bless their hearts, what a journey they were going for. My compassion for them and empathy was really, really great. And on one of these particular occasions, several occasions, after I'd taken the women to the safe house, I just have this knowing that the husband was going to come round. And my husband at that time worked nights. So I was a bit kind of, you know, wary, and I'd ring a friend and say, look, I need you to come round to my house. Could you be round here by about 7 in the evening? And I think Mr. So-and-so is going to come round to my house looking for his wife. And I just want somebody on the end of the telephone in my house to ring the police if necessary. And they would come round, my friends were brilliant, they would come round and they would sit in this other room, and sure enough, at that time, the husband would come round. I never questioned it. I never thought, oh, how do I know that? It was just part of me and the way I saw life. So I never thought, oh God, you're amazing, Linda. At that time, it was just part of who I was, without question. And then around the same sort of time, during one of these escapes, my mother had become more and more insistent that she wanted to spend time with me. She said, I'm obsessed with you. I don't know what it is. I have to spend time with you. And she'd come round in the morning quite depressed. I'd have a chat with her. She'd go away looking okay. She'd come round again in the afternoon, quite depressed. We'd have another chat. Then she would go away. And then the same in the evening. So I was a very patient kind of person. And here I am, 29. I've never had a crossword with my mother, but she was getting a bit ridiculous now. And she was just thinking about herself. I was going to take this woman to escape with her children. My mother arrived and said, well, I need you. And I said, well, I'm just going to take this lady and help her escape. And I will see you later. And she was like, no, I need you now, you know, and she was really insisting. And I lost my cool with her. And I just went, no, like this. And my brother-in-law, the other side of the room, fell over. And I saw myself standing around my mother in 6 different places. This one was the 7th place that I thought I'd lost the plot. My first time I've had crosswords of my mother, and I am in all these different places. One part was going, right, hooray, at last. And the other one was going, oh my God, what have I done? All these different characters. It was really, really freaky. I obviously didn't share. I thought, I've really lost the plot. I've lost my marbles here. I'm really, really scared, but I've got to go and save this woman. So I leave the house. My brother-in-law is still on the floor. I leave the house, go and pick this woman up, and I'm driving down the road as fast as I can, and suddenly the gear stick comes out in my hand. It's completely broken off. I was just like, what the heck's going on? And I just slammed this gear stick back into its place, and I had to drive in a galloping sort of way in 2nd gear. That wasn't fun. However, we still got the woman safe, and we came back. I was still in 2nd gear, and I was shaking inside. I was so scared. I was so scared that I had lost it this time. I'd gone completely off track. In fact, I didn't tell anybody about that for 6 years, but I shook inside for 3 months. I thought any day now they're going to come and find out that I really lost it. Very, very scary time. So we go forward now to a couple of years later. My marriage has broken down. Everything is really difficult. The stress of it all, I'd twisted my pelvis, lost my business, and on top of that, suddenly my mother died. She was 54 years old, and she died. She died at the worst time in my life. So I was in a bit of a state. So I was in London the day she died, and my ex-husband rang me up crying and told me about it. I was doing an interview with 14 people that day. They were all sitting there watching me take this phone call. And I said, I'll ring you back. I'll put the phone down. Somehow, who am I? I carried on the interview for another 10 minutes. And then when they left, I went into my boss's office. He luckily had been a doctor, and he said, something's wrong with you, have a brandy. You know, what's going on? I told him what had happened. He said, you're not in a fit state to drive back to Oxford now. Just go in the morning. I said I would go in. I would go at some point. I can't remember whether it was the next day or not. But anyway, I started driving from London, driving down the A40. I'm in deep shock. I've already got enough stuff going on. And then this happened. My car broke down on the A40. Not what you need. So where I'd broken down, there was no houses this side. They were over that side. So I had to go across this dual carriageway. And I walk across this dual carriageway. How I didn't get run over, I have no idea. And I started walking to the first house. I walked straight past it. I'm asking myself, why am I walking past this house? But I am. And I walked past the next one and the next one until the 9th house. I go to the 9th house and knock on the door. A woman comes to the door. She looks just like my mother, which was quite a freak out. And I said, I'm really sorry to disturb you. My car is broken down on the A40, and could I use your phone? Because in those days we didn't have mobiles or anything like that. So she said, yes, of course, come in. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm in a bit of a state. My mother just died. And she said, my husband died yesterday. And I was just like, I just knew then my mother had orchestrated this. I suddenly felt safer. And this lady was really kind. She said she'd known for 3 years that her husband was dying. And I was obviously in complete shock. And she made me some tea, and she rang this guy who she used as a mechanic. He was very kind. He came out to me, picked me up from her house, took me back to my car. Nothing wrong with it. I knew then. I knew that was my mother connecting with me and bringing that other place, that higher place, closer to me. And it helped me so much at that time. And it was the thing that really started my journey. It was huge. And it was about 6 days after her death, I was back in Chislehurst. I was walking down the high street. I had to go and do this business meeting. I was in a suit, white blouse, dicky bow tie, briefcase. I'm walking down the high street and I walked past this cafe and I thought I saw her. I saw my mother, and I was just like, and of course I felt crestfallen and I wanted the world to swallow me. It was just too much. Everything was just too much to bear at that time. And I don't know what made me look, but I looked up into the sky, and I saw my mother's face. I saw my mother's face. I was so elated. I stood on tiptoe. I dropped my briefcase. This is the middle of Chislehurst High Street. Who cares? I stand on tiptoe and reach my face as high as I could. And our faces almost touched. I could feel her. And I knew she was connecting with me, and I knew this was true, and I knew this was real, and I felt so supported. I felt so much better. It was fantastic. 2 minutes later, I walk into the sales office to sort the sales team out or close the office. What a day I was having. Wow, really, really big. So during this time, I met a new partner, and that partner was into tarot, and I started doing a bit of tarot, and the readings were so accurate. They were just totally amazed. I was a little bit surprised and amazed at the same time. And then my energy, there's something going on with my energy, although I didn't know that's what it was at the time. I would go to people's houses and suddenly something with a china mug or something would leap up off the side and crash to the floor. Oh God, it kept happening everywhere I went. Things were breaking and throwing themselves around. And I remember going to one party, and I went to this party, and laden table with glass dishes and beautiful things in it. And there was this one dish, a beautiful ornate glass dish with a lid full of almond sweets. And I walked into the room, this lifted up, moved to one side and smashed to the floor. And I was like, oh my God. And they said, oh God, Linda's arrived. I said, what's happening here? And I said, I'm so sorry, but you're going to get another one. And about 10 minutes later, somebody walked in with a gift for her, and it was exactly the same dish. And I didn't know how I knew this. But these uncontrolled kind of things kept happening, which was a bit freaky. It was quite curious. It was a bit freaky. And also, I started to, there was a few days, I don't know, I was about 34, and I started to hear, I was living in a split masonette, and I started to hear this rumbling noise. Now, you know, an old-fashioned lawnmower, if you can imagine that noise being wheeled down a concrete path, that's the noise I was hearing. And I was saying to people, oh, what's that? What's that noise? And they said, what noise? Well, you must be able to hear that noise. And nobody could hear the noise. I was just like, oh God. And I would listen to this noise and listen to this noise. And then I would start to hear like the wind blowing like crazy. And I would listen. And in the distance somewhere, I would hear somebody calling me. And that was like a signal to me that I was going to start having a connection with spirit. Anyway, this is before my awakening, but this is a build up. So I will be very happy to tell you more in my next podcast, and I'll say namaste. So thank you so much for joining me and watching this. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's given you reassurance. Please send me messages if you want to know, if you've got any questions to ask. And the next part of the series is talking about the dream. When I start to have it when I'm awake, it will cover my big awakening experience. You won't want to miss that. It was out of this world, I can tell you. So if you've enjoyed this experience, don't forget, hit the subscribe button and the bell just to remind you when the next one's on. Thank you. Namaste.